Hey gang, it's your buddy Platt, back with another value spirit video. Today the particular spirit we have is Paul Masson Brandy, or Paul Masson Grand Amber Brandy. Comes to us at $9.99. At that price, it's tough to beat it. If you can get an 80 proof spirit in a bottle for 10 bucks, even if it's vodka, gin, rum, you're already kind of getting ahead of the game. And especially the fact that it's a brown spirit, something been aged, which is additional cost. Right there, we're already probably looking at a good value right there. Today, I thought we'd kind of focus on Paul Masson, the man, the gentleman that created the brand. Very big influence in the California viticulture and champagne scene. Also, he produced still wines, brandies. Again, very, very important figure in California wine. Was born in 1859 in France. Eventually immigrated to the U.S. in 1878 from Burgundy. So you can kind of say he had wine already, the wine industry already in his blood. When he came to Northern California, he ended up meeting a gentleman named Charles Lafranc. Now, Mr. Lafranc at the time owned and ran the Almaden Vineyards. Charles and Paul became quick friends, but Paul decided a couple years later, in 1880, to head back to France to finish up schooling. Well, unfortunately for him and France at the time, the phylloxera louse, or little bug, ended up hitting and destroying pretty much the French wine industry for a few years there. They eventually solved it by bringing root stocks from the U.S., a different type of vine that was resistant to it, and grafting it on there. But the French wine industry was nearly wiped out around this time. So after a couple years, Paul decided to head back to Northern California and reunite with Mr. Lafranc, where he went to work as a winemaker at the Almaden Vineyards. He worked for a few years there, and then unfortunately, Mr. Lafranc passed away, but for Paul, he had the resources, got them together, and ended up purchasing the vineyard. Now, he split off about 60 acres of that vineyard and started planting Pinot Noir and Chardonnay grapevines or cuttings that he brought back from France. Now, I don't know if that was the wisest decision to bring back cuttings from France during the phylloxera outbreak, but he somehow dodged that bullet, and again, maybe he just grafted it to the rootstocks that were already resistant. But anyway, he started growing Pinot Noir and Chardonnays because he had a dream, or he was going to take those grapes, those are the grapes that are used to create champagne. And in 1892, he introduced his first champagne. And we've talked about this in the Corbel Brandy video. At the time, there was a lot of immigration from Europe to the U.S. They made their way to California because that was probably the best climate to grow classic European style, grapes and create those classic wines and everything. And so you had a lot of the French and the Italian over there, and they wanted to produce similar wines back home. They didn't have the labeling laws. We didn't have international trade agreements, so they kind of felt a little freer to call their stuff champagne. Nowadays, they're kind of grandfather claused in, and the term they use is a California champagne. But anyway, Paul Masson started creating his champagne in 1892, but had his big break in 1900, where he took his champagne over to Paris and won a competition at the Paris Expo. Again, we got to remember the French wine industry at the time is just coming out of the phylloxera epidemic, so they're not quite firing on all cylinders, but Paul took the credibility he got from that and really started to take off as a company. He personally became known as the king of California champagnes and took that influence to 1913, where he was named on the California State Board of Viticulture, really started expanding his influence in California. Paul Masson later died in 1940. This led to the company kind of changing hands several times over the years. Eventually, it was purchased and today owned by Ernest and Julio Gallo, E&J Brandies, another popular brandy out there. And again, similar story, European immigrants going out there, creating their own wine industry in California. Today, these brands are looked down upon, but they were started in the purest of intentions, and again, are on quality land and with quality vines, so probably look down a little bit too much more than they should be. Again, they're not making Silver Oak or some of the other great California wines, but there's a lot of tradition in these products. A couple of quick, fun little stories about Paul Masson. If you're a little bit older, my age, around 50 or so, you might remember the old commercials with Orson Welles. Orson Welles was the writer, actor, director that gave us the great Citizen Kane. Highly revered in Hollywood, but he did a series of commercials for Paul Masson at the time, and the catchphrase was, "We will sell no wine before it's time." And even up until the 70s and 80s, about the time of those commercials, Paul Masson was still kind of a reputable brand. If somebody brought it to a party, a bottle of Paul Masson Red or Chardonnay or whatever, oh yeah, we're drinking. No one was going to turn it down. But those are some classic commercials if you get a chance to see those on YouTube. And then lastly, a fun little tidbit. Again, you're going to need to be a little older to remember this, but in the late 70s to about 1980 or something like that, there was something called Skylab. It was the first kind of space station out there. It was going to take us from the Apollo missions to the space shuttle missions. It was the first kind of sustained place where astronauts stayed in long periods of time. One of the missions, they decided to take a couple of bottles of Paul Masson Rare Cream Sherry up there to experiment in zero gravity science. Apparently one of the bottles either got open or something, but the smell was so pungent and just was throughout the entire Skylab that a couple of the crew members said they got sick and it was just a little too much. NASA got a little pushback on it, a little bad publicity, so they ended up getting rid of the cream sherry. I don't know if they brought it back down or just threw it out the window. Who knows? Maybe there's a bottle of cream sherry floating around in space. I'd love to try it. To me, I think they would let those guys have a drink. I mean, you're 300 miles up in space, you know, you got the beautiful view of Earth. Those guys probably deserve a drink. Who knows? Real quick, a few accolades for Paul Masson Grand Amber Brandy. Uproxx lists this as one of the best brandy brands under $30. Manamini.com lists this as one of the 10 best brandies to end your night with. Brandy's always a great nightcap to kind of wind down. Food for Naught says this is one of the best cheap brandies out on the market. And last but not least, Esquire Magazine lists this not just one of the best cheap brandies, but one of the best cheap booze on the market that still tastes damn good, which is kind of the whole point of this series. Hey, let's find something that tastes good for the buck. So with that being said, let's give Paul Masson Grand Amber Brandy a try. All right, not too hot on the nose. A slight hint of, you know, vanilla. Let's give it a try. Oh, kid, that's pleasant. That is very nice. Goes down pretty easy. A nice little sweet punch up front. I'm going to say medium minus body. Nice finish. Warming feeling, but not a burn. Man, again, $9.99. That, boy, we might be enjoying this more often. This is really, yeah, I don't need a mixture with that. That is really nice. Just nice, smooth, not too complicated flavor-wise. Got a nice bit of sweetness. You get a little bit of the oak in there. Not complicated, but just well executed, easy drinking. At $9.99, I don't care if I throw it with a mixer or not, but it's good enough to drink on the rocks or a little snifter. I'm going to say Paul Masson Brandy. That is the definition of a value spirit. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or spirits that you would like me to try for this or suggest for this series, please leave them in the comments section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Until next time, bottoms up.